The logging roads, which cost about $250,000 per mile, are a massive devastation to the forest because they cause erosion and, of course, the clear cutting that comes. And then you get the slippage because they are not maintained. Almost all of the logging roads are not maintained. Meanwhile, we're building more than 1,000 miles more roads. So we get all of the slippage that occurs, and with that, the erosion and other damages. And this shows, and it's been similar, about $40 million a year in subsidies. And I was hoping for a quick change with Obama, but we really haven't seen it yet. We need to have the public pressure asking that all we have to do is take out this money. For most of the environmentally destructive projects we fight against, they're making money. There's a profit, and we have to weigh the balance of the environmental destruction with the perceived or potential benefits. With this, there's no benefit unless you're a logging company, and logging companies, of course, do give enormous contributions to Congress. But unless you're a logging company, there's no benefit. The taxpayers lose in two ways. We subsidize the roads, and then we get a destroyed forest. And then on top of that, the roads erode and cause massive amounts of damage. The roads already in the Tongass can reach all the way from Seattle up to Boston, and the roads that they're trying to build, about another 1,000 miles, totally unnecessary, and all we have to do is strip out the subsidies. It's a no-brainer issue if it were not for the campaign contributions of the logging companies. And that's it. Back on the helicopter, we saw where they take the logs down and form these rafts, which they then tow into clusters, and then the huge ships come in and load the logs onto the ships.
They're mostly going to Japan, you say?
Most of them going to Asia, a lot to Japan, yeah. For a while, just for a few years, they tried to put a law in saying that all the wood would have to be used in the U.S., but no U.S. company was willing to buy it, and so they just got rid of that law, and it's almost all being shipped to Asia. And they have a hard time finding companies willing to bid on these projects because of the lawsuits by environmental groups, and also because it's just so remote, it's so hard to get these to market that they've been having a hard time, luckily, to get companies to even bid on these. But it is still going on. As you can see, the helicopter went just about 5 feet off the water. Amazing journey. New Zealand pilot. It's another amazing thing being on the Greenpeace boat. You really met people from all over the world that worked on the boat. And they come to these, they line all of the logs up, and then these huge ships come on and load up the logs and ship them mostly to Asia. Now, while we're on the Greenpeace boat, the Haida people who lived real nearby canoed in a traditional canoe about 25 foot long, made out of a burned out log, and we had a traditional dinner on the Greenpeace boat, and clams and deer, which they hunt. And they're also, the native peoples, the Haida and the Tlingit, are very concerned because the deer do not come back to the second growth, and hardly any numbers at all. They live in incredible numbers in the old growth forest, and they're very concerned about their subsistence lifestyle. And also, they're spraying pesticides and herbicides after they do the clear cutting that the Haida people are very upset and opposed to, because these pesticides are getting right into the waterways where they collect the clams and shellfish. Now, from the Greenpeace boat, we went down and went back on the Greenpeace boat for a while, and we pulled into the port of Heidelberg. This is a Haida community, and where we stayed and met with the Haida people who almost are unanimously against logging. And from there, took the helicopter back to Ketchikan over Gravina Island. Now, Gravina Island is threatened in two ways. One is a big logging project, which is planned and luckily has not occurred yet. That still needs to be stopped. And the other big threat to Gravina Island is they want to build a bridge to nowhere to this island. It's a $300 million bridge that almost got built about a decade ago, had it not been for some lawmakers who coined the term bridge to nowhere, and it was stopped. But this shows some of the logging projects that they want to do. This is all still in a logging plan, 676,000 acres that are scheduled to be logged unless we take some major action. And almost all of these are in roadless areas. So all we really have to do is restore the roadless area or take out the subsidies for road building, and the logging projects will stop. In the meantime, we have to litigate them, but the problem is that we could lose and the forest will be gone forever. Now, this is right where they want to build a bridge to nowhere across from Ketchikan. And I am living proof as to why we do not need this bridge. Because I was in a helicopter with two people, the pilot and myself. We got into the Ketchikan airport, which is why they want to build a bridge, and a ferry was waiting, and within 10 minutes we were on the ferry in Ketchikan, and if they can do that for two people, they don't need a bridge to nowhere. There's only 10 people that live on the island. People who take claims out of it can just take the ferry over, and they're going to destroy the area where float planes land. And more people come in by float plane than by regular plane, so it really doesn't make any sense, except they want to build roads all throughout this area. It's not just a bridge to nowhere. They want to connect this area with roads that would really devastate the reason why 1.2 million people come to this area. Now from Ketchikan, I took the ferry over to Juneau, and there I went to a dinner with the Alaska Coalition, another group working really hard protecting this area. And we had the dinner at the Mendenhall Glacier. And like almost all glaciers in the world, it is receding very quickly because of climate change. And the melting of some glaciers has increased exponentially in recent years. The melting in Greenland has increased 3 times in the last 15 years, according to James Hansen. And with the melting of ice on land, that raises sea levels. Now in Juneau, we've got these chum salmon, and people in the region just take the salmon for granted. That there's tens of millions of salmon, you can stock up your freezer and get a salmon on almost every catch of enormous size. But people in Washington State, Oregon, and California have a big message to send to this area. Don't take the salmon for granted. They are easy to collapse, as has happened in those states where you can't catch a fish because there's so few of them, they need every one of them to breed. This is a rare place where the fishing is actually still sustainable, even though it's done in massive amounts. Tens of millions of salmon come from this area every year and are brought to market, and it's sustainable because of the old growth forest and all of the salmon spawning streams. Now from Juneau, I took the ferry over to Sitka, and the ferry system is inexpensive, it's very nice, it's regular. We really do not need a bunch of roads throughout this area. You meet amazing people, it's just a very pleasant way to travel, and I hope that we can stop the roads that they're wanting to build through this area as well. They would be right on the coast, and they would devastate the region. Now, few of the communities that still has old growth forest within walking distance of the city. And this is where the Northern Exposure was based, the TV show, and it still has a lot of its old growth character, which is quite nice.